Paid time off from work is something that regular people can almost universally agree on as being a good thing, and that, if anything, they don't get enough of it. However, when you live your life with no friends or any real interests, then it's a different story. So hello, and welcome to another episode of Ridiculous Problems I Have When I Live as a Loner. Now, I work at a university in the UK, and the summer months are coming up. Most of our customers, so that's the students, they're finishing their exams and going home for their 5-month-long summer break, which means it's a lot quieter at work. Because of this, we are encouraged to use this time to take our paid time off before the annual allocation resets at the start of September. And for some reason, we really do get a lot of time off. First off, I only work Monday to Fridays, it's something that's becoming really rare in the UK, and I understand overseas as well. And we also get something like, I think it's 14 or so concessionary days off. So this is public holidays, so bank holidays, Christmas, Easter and New Year's, and even all the days in between. So I think we finish a few days before Christmas, and then we're off work until a few days after the New Year. And these are days that they can't change, they're completely fixed in place, but it's paid time off. But on top of that, we also get a whopping 35 days to take whenever we'd like, outside of those concessionary days. So that's like seven whole weeks. And when I factor in this workplace digital apprenticeship course that I've recently started, which gives me 1 extra day off a week work, protected against my usual duties, this sort of pumps it up to almost 9 weeks of paid holiday. So what's that, like almost 2.5 months? But so far I've only taken 2 days this holiday year, and this leaves me with a ridiculous amount of time to take still. But I do have to take it, otherwise my manager gets pretty mad at me, and I don't want that. In the past, I've generally just wasted my holiday, so sitting at home, watching YouTube videos and drinking. But, well, I quit drinking this year, and I found that there's only so much YouTube you can just binge while being completely sober before your brain just starts to melt. So I need to come up with some kind of plan, and maybe you can help. Like, perhaps you've been in a similar situation in the past and found a good solution, or maybe you're facing the same thing as me, and together we can try and talk this through. Now, I've spent the last decade pretty much optimizing my life. I already have huge amounts of free time to do whatever I want with. The problem is my obsession in the past was just going to wild measures to get to this point. So that was my biggest interest, my only interest really. So outside of work, that is. I've got no interest really whatsoever in travelling, going on holiday and seeing places. I don't really care too much for video games anymore, apart from of course Minecraft, or watching TV series. There's something about the great lockdown of 2020 where I was furloughed from work for a few months really ruined all of these things for me. And what little hobbies I have left, so that's like reading and going to the gym, keeping in shape, these are things that I just do alongside going to work anyway. So I can't really just go harder on these, like spend a whole month straight reading. So what to do then? Well, I've got a few ideas and I'd like to talk them through. First off, there are a few ways I could try and use the time to generate some additional income. I can't sell the time back to work, unfortunately, but with so much time off, there are a few ways to make a bit more money. Now, finding a part-time job, that I could work is difficult enough already, so I don't think this is an option, finding a job to just work for a couple of months in the summer. But I do have active accounts on all the big food delivery gig apps in the UK, so that's Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats. And I live in a city that's so small that this whole food delivery thing can be done on just my electric bike. And it's actually pretty fun doing it in the sun, just zipping around, delivering food. It's also a good way to keep cool in the heat, since all the wind's blowing around you, I find. But the big problem is, that since it's a pretty student-heavy city that I live in, like university students, and they make up a huge portion of the orders, so the takeaway orders, the issue is that these students aren't here in the summer. So there's very little work to go around. But I think I'll give it a go anyway, like why not? I live pretty centrally, so there's no harm in just being logged on to the apps while I'm at home, just milling about during the day. And if any good jobs come up, well, it gives me something to do. The second way I can use my time to generate some more income is through clinical trials. It's something I've tried to get onto before, and it's actually pretty good money. You basically just trade your time for money, and you get to live in like a clinical trial centre for a few weeks while they experiment on you. So there's this one called Flu Camp. I think it's based in London and Manchester in the UK, where they isolate you in your own room with a bed, television, I think an Xbox, shower and so on. And they give you, from what I understand, it's like a weakened version of the current seasonal flu, or at least that's one of the things they do. And they somehow monitor you for a few weeks. After all this, like the free living expenses and some nice time alone, which kind of does sound like being in a prison, they pay you up to, I think it's like £4,500. So that must be like $6,000 or $7,000, which is a pretty sweet deal, I think. Of course, perhaps there are some risks to this, but it's not like I'm doing anything else with my life, so I could at least let them use my body for medical science. We'll see. Anyway, the next idea is to start working on making these videos more regularly, or perhaps work on improving the quality, so like improving the editing or something like that, and having videos with more coherent messages, something actually worth listening to instead of my insane ramblings, which is what I had planned to do over Easter actually, before the surprise visit of my family members, which did completely throw me off. But with a solid couple of weeks or months or so, I imagine I could make some real progress in learning the skills to make better videos, providing I can keep focused and keep a solid schedule, not just waste the time. In fact, it's not just videos on this channel I could focus on. I haven't made it yet, but my manager has given me the go-ahead to work on like what I sold to him as a digital outreach and personal branding project for what I do at work, pretty much. While I'm not too sure that he understands what I was pitching to him, I basically would like to make a channel and perhaps a blog as well, where I discuss what I do at work in a positive light, of course. I'm not going to slander the company. Promoting the profession of being a university scientist and essentially getting paid to make YouTube videos at work. I have no idea where this could go, but I think it'll make work a bit more fun. And while I can't do any filming while on holiday, I can at least come up with some ideas and scripts and such, so I can start pumping the videos when I get back to work. Improving my skills in videography would in no way be a waste of time compared to how I usually spend my holiday days. So this is something I really need to do. In fact, it could be coupled with the clinical trials one if I do that idea, as I'll be pretty bored otherwise, just sat in my little prison cell. There are some other skills I want to learn though, and if I had unlimited time somehow, I think this is something that I would be working on and dedicating a lot of my time to, and that is that I would like to learn another language. When I was at college, I did a course in Japanese, and it was something I really enjoyed. It's such a beautiful language, steeped in culture with an incredible writing system, but the problem is, and I've touched on this in the past, that, well, what would I use this skill for? It would be a huge commitment to learn, and I understand it takes years to get any good really. And while I'd enjoy the process, I don't know any Japanese people, and even if I did go on holiday to Japan, for example, it would only be useful for the time while I'm there. So it's a tough one. I guess it's better than sitting around rotting my brain watching YouTube videos, but it would be pretty tragic to focus on this for a few months, only to just waste it all when I get back to work. I don't know. There are a couple of other things I've been considering though, and that is pixel art and indie video game development. I've got this idea in my mind of making a game that's kind of like Stardew Valley. That's something I've actually picked up recently, except you're a scientist managing a lab. I doubt there would be much of a market for that, but I think it would be kind of fun to make at least the whole process, spending some time learning these things, would hopefully lead to learning loads of transferable skills. Even if I don't end up making a video game in the end, I mean, you can learn all of this stuff pretty much for free these days with YouTube content if you're motivated enough. It almost makes universities redundant in some way. But, well, don't stop going to university because you're able to learn things for free online. Because I do like having a job anyway. These ideas are, I think, a good start for planning how to spend my time off over the next few months. Perhaps there are a few obvious things I've overlooked, but if I'm able to make headway with any one of these ideas, it will be a much more successful year than, well, any year since the last decade, I suppose. Although thinking about it, all of my ideas have been about trying to be productive in some way. So actively creating something, like generating income or learning a skill, and none of it's been about consuming, which is the kind of things my colleagues, I suppose, spend their holidays on. I guess there's no right way to spend your time off from work, but a lot of people would say to me that it's meant to be a time to unwind, but we do get a lot of time off. And how much unwinding can one loner do? Anyway, hopefully you don't have this problem that I have, and you can spend any holiday you have on things you enjoy. But thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.